But luckily, I think I was able to break into it more so because of Instagram.
Welcome to Smile with Jamie, where we explore the world of cosmetic dentistry. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie, a passionate young dentist, and I'm determined to get all the clues to becoming a successful cosmetic dentist. Without further ado, let's dive into today's episode and meet our guest, Dr. Joyce Kahng, a successful female Asian American cosmetic dentist who's paved her way to cosmetic dentistry with her determination and resilience. Yay! Thanks for being here, Joyce the dentist.
Yay!
It's such an honor to have you in my first episode. Can you tell us about your background? What inspired you to become a cosmetic dentist?
So I come from a dental family. I think you
Mm-hmm.
also come from a dental family. My mom was a dentist, and I became a dentist basically because I just was very inspired by her. She didn't do cosmetic dentistry, actually. When I graduated, I didn't even want to own my own practice or do cosmetic
Mm-hmm.
dentistry. But I started doing cases, not really trying to do quote unquote cosmetic dentistry, but like those practices, if there were people that needed like 6 anterior crowns that were covered by insurance. That's how I started doing a lot of those. And then when I became a practice owner, I would do a lot of bondings and mistakenly fill them out as composites with like cavities when it was really bonding, like cosmetic dentistry. And so I just started doing it here and there. And I never really had any aspiration for doing cosmetic dentistry because my first love has always been prevention. And I felt like there was so much impact in prevention. I think when I started really going for the cosmetic dentistry is I have a practice. I'm a practice owner. So my practice was originally a very bread and butter dentistry practice. And I started doing more cosmetic dentistry here and there, but I didn't really like decide to do only cosmetic dentistry until I started realizing like this is what I want to do. And it's hard because some people I think really want to do cosmetic dentistry and it's like an aspiration because it's like what's cool, I guess. But it is not easy to break into cosmetic dentistry, especially if you've never worked for a real like cosmetic dentist where their practice is set up for cosmetic dentistry and you haven't really dealt with that type of patient. We really don't learn a lot of cosmetic dentistry when we're in dental school. So, like a lot of it, you have to find on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out a lot of things on your own, make your own mistakes. And I feel like there's a lot of cosmetic dentists that don't really want to share their secrets with you. So
Mm.
it's even harder. But luckily, I think I was able to break into it more so because of Instagram. It's so weird, but
Mm.
I've gained such a wonderful community on Instagram and I started reaching out to cosmetic dentists and they were like more than happy to help me when normally nobody would help me with anything.
Yeah, that's so interesting because that's what I find too. Like Instagram is such an interesting place where you get to connect with people, and for the most part, like you who are just here to give and be generous with your knowledge and experience. So, did you have like a specific mentors or role models as you started to dip your toes in cosmetic dentistry world?
No, I did I
Mm.
didn't. And I feel like that's the hardest way to do it. I wouldn't have been able to break into cosmetic dentistry had it not been for Instagram. It's because I think people focus a lot on the clinical aspects of the dentistry, like how to do the cases. That stuff, I think these days there's so many more resources, like classes you can take, but I didn't even really take a class. I learned off of DVDs, like, because I graduated like years ago. So there weren't really classes for this. Like it was one of those things where you learned it from a mentor or you worked in one of those environments. These days, more people are just doing it, but I didn't learn really from anybody in particular.
Wow, that's
And I just
impressive.
kept doing it and doing it. And, I think you have to have somewhat of an eye, a discerning eye for beauty or what people perceive as beauty. And you start doing these cases and you think that you're a big shot. But you have to like keep yourself grounded because every single case that I do, I always look at it like, where did I miss something? Like it could
Mm.
have been better. And it's a fine balance because that can drive you crazy. It sometimes does, but it's also like if you don't find that fun to do, then it's not for you.
I'm just wondering because you said you just had to break it yourself into that world of cosmetic dentistry. I find that really challenging. Without having any mentors who will guide you, or you didn't really work under someone who had all the equipment and tools, like how did you start? How did you start doing those bondings or veneers?
So I was doing them as they just came into my office very randomly, but I wasn't like a quote unquote cosmetic dentist. I wasn't trying to be. And
Mm,
that's how I got my first taste. But you're right in that it is really hard to break into, especially for a woman. It is harder because it's traditionally been a very dudes club. So my mom's like, I'm so proud of you for doing this. And I'm proud of myself too, but I wouldn't have really been able to. It took a lot of intention because at one second you're doing like veneers as they come in, and it's like, not that frequent. It's going to be like every so often. And then you can't really get good at stuff until you do it all the time. So then
mm-hmm,
there's a point at which you're like, okay, this is all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do those like root canals and stuff anymore. And so you're kind of leaving money on the table when you do that. But
mm,
it's so that you can focus on being really, really good because that's the only way to get better. But then when you start doing that, you realize you don't have the flow of patients coming in wanting this type of procedure. And the lab bill is actually, if you want to be good at this and start growing, then you have to like invest in a really good lab. That's expensive. And then you have to be paid a certain amount for the work that you do. So making that jump from a general dentist to a
mm-hmm,
real cosmetic dentist where you have a consistent flow of people who want to do this work with you, who are willing to pay like it's expensive,
mm,
but there's a lot of a lab. It's not that you're taking home everything.
mm-hmm,
You have to charge well for it because there's a lot of overhead for this type of
mm-hmm.
work too. I think making that jump is very, very difficult.
Just to backtrack, where did you graduate dental school, and when did you start owning your own practice?
I'm a UOP 2010 grad. I bought my practice in 2014.
So you worked as an associate for 4 years,
Hmm, hmm.
and did you do like cosmetic work as an associate?
It was more so, yeah, I did cosmetic work, but it wasn't like I was super plugged into trying to attract a certain type of
Mm-hmm.
work or patient. It was just whatever came through the door, I would do it to the best of my ability. I mean, I remember doing cases like this. It was an HMO practice, but with HMO, I'm sure I didn't really know at the time, but like they were probably upcharging people for this type of work, and I didn't wasn't really involved in the financial aspects, but I would just do the cases, and this patients would cry. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's so crazy that they look at their smile and they cry because usually people cry at the dental office when something bad is happening.
Yeah. Can you just explain what HMO clinic is?
HMO is a type of insurance. So there's like PPO, indemnity plans, and
Yeah, that's a little
HMO.
different. Yeah, in Canada.
Yeah, HMO. Oh, in Canada, I see. There's no HMO in Canada.
I don't really know a lot about insurance things. So.
Oh, that's how I was too. So HMO people with an HMO insurance are assigned to a certain dental office, and that dental office gets like a check from the insurance company, no matter how many patients come in. But they get paid like very little per procedure.
Yeah.
And I've found that a lot of these people who take HMOs, in order to make up for that, they end up charging for like all these random things like desensitizer or
Mm,
whatever. There's a lot of upcharges involved with
yeah.
HMOs typically.
So you started having more freedom when you started your own practice. Do you feel like that, or do you think it was just possible to kind of start dipping your toes as an associate, and then once you opened your own practice, it was just like, here I go?
No, I mean, I was a pretty productive associate. I
Mm.
worked like a dog. Like, I worked really hard. I worked and then I would like drink a whole bottle of wine that
Oh
night. Like,
no.
I was working so hard, and I am wired to work hard. It's actually been hard for me to try not to do that, drive myself in that way. But when I became a practice owner, it's almost like I was starting from zero because I didn't know how to run a practice. And it took
Mhm.
me a long time to find my way with the practice. Because again, I took over like an older clientele. It was all bread and butter dentistry. I wasn't like 100% sure that cosmetic is what I wanted to do. And more so, I wasn't sure if I could pull it off
Mm.
because I didn't have footsteps of someone to follow. The people around me who were doing cosmetic dentistry, I mean, it makes you feel like you're so behind all the time because they're doing cases already and they've already built up a reputation.
Mhm.
And when you are a new practice and you don't have that many Yelp reviews to begin with, I mean, the practice itself, you're building up the reputation of both the practice and yourself. It's like a untraveled path with cosmetic dentistry, whereas with bread and butter dentistry, I think everyone does it and there's a
Yeah.
way everyone can talk about, everyone can give their advice. But with cosmetic dentistry, it's like a little bit harder, especially
Mm.
if you don't have mentors.
And I'm just like still so impressed that you were able to like pave your own way without any like real mentors.
I think I learn a little bit from everyone though.
Mm.
And I reach out to people all the time and I look at their cases and I ask them, and you know who are the best people to start asking are actually lab people. um,
Mm.
you don't think that, but if you work with a really great lab,
Mhm.
then they know how to do everything. They have to make all the cases for all the people around. I get on the phone with my lab guy and I talk cases with him all the time. Like I always ask him like, "Oh, should I have done this better? You know,
Mm.
am I making life harder for you by not reducing this much? Or like, where should I have reduced more for next time?" It's always constantly learning. Those lab people have a good like frame of reference because like he does all cases from like Beverly Hills, Newport Beach. And so he has a good frame of reference as to like skill levels of different dentists and what patients are asking for in a very like demanding environment.
Mm. You're based in LA
OC,
and
yeah.
yeah, OC. Do you find there's higher demand of like cosmetic work? Like patients kind of just walk in with cosmetic requests, or was it something that started to grow after you launched your social media and built that community?
You have to be intentional to get these types of patients. The amount that they're spending is not like just money that they're gonna spend just by walking
Mm-hmm.
into like a general dental practice. These days, patients come to me knowing that I am a cosmetic dentist and wanting that kind of work. Even the general patients that I get for the other side of my practice that's more like bread and butter dentistry, most of them come like having some sort of cosmetic desire. It took so much laying the groundwork to actually start getting those calls consistently and getting virtual smile requests consistently. Because if you stopped doing all these other aspects of dentistry and that's all your office kind of relies on, then
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a big deal. You have to start getting those consistent flow leads.
Yeah. How long did it take for you to have that kind of flow, if you can?
It's different
Mm.
at every phase. Right now, I will say I get a pretty good flow, mostly all from Instagram, but also an overflow of Instagram is now I've been featured in so many media articles and I'm showing up really well on SEO for Google. Friends
Mm.
share their results with their friends. And so, like, all these little pieces are now working together. And I was just talking to like my office managers, like, I don't know what happened, but this works. And
Mm.
she's like, my office
Mm.
manager's old. She's like, she was not a fan of Instagram, but she's like, I don't know, but keep doing what you're doing because this is awesome. And she gets bonuses, so she's happy.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, and one of the challenges that we like see in cosmetic world is how do you handle like patient expectations and then ensure that you like set realistic goals for them? Because a lot of these people who are aesthetic driven or they want to achieve some sort of aesthetics with their mouth, they have certain standards, and I know it for myself. If I would be the worst patient because I would like nitpick things. Is there any like how do you handle those things with your patients?
I think it's sort of built into the system appointments that I have with patients. I tend to attract people who are really picky.
Mm.
And I think And I like that because I like people who are vocal about what they like and don't like. Like this one patient, I mean, I have so many picky patients. But when I was first starting off, I look back and I they were not that picky when I really think about it. And I'm very grateful to have, you know, started off doing all these cases on people who, were just happy to get the work done
Mm,
with me and they didn't really demand all these like characteristics in their teeth like that are built just for them. And I don't know if this is like the way because cosmetic dentistry has just gone in this direction, but patients want customization to their smiles. They don't want just every single smile that they see on the internet. They want it like for them. And that's
mm,
what I think that I'm really really good at because my patience level is pretty high. I'm not patient in any other aspect of my life, but dealing with these people, I like really want to make sure that they love their smile in the end.
yeah.
So what I usually do is like in their temporaries, I will make all the customizations, even bring them back to work on their temporaries so that once they're like, okay, yeah, this is looking really good, then that's when I send that to the lab so
Oh,
that they
okay.
can replicate it into the porcelain. That way, it's not like you're just hoping and praying that something good comes back.
Yeah, that's really cool that you spend like enough time with temporaries and like really get that set up so that the final results just mimic and they're satisfied. So you kind of touched up upon patience being one of the qualities as a cosmetic dentist. What would be the key skills or qualities that you think is essential for becoming a successful cosmetic dentist?
So, first of all, you have to be able to see
Mm,
what they're talking about. There are some, you've ever talked to patients, like sometimes they're like describing something about their tooth and it doesn't exist, or they're describing it in a non dental way where you have to figure out what exactly they mean. So, I think setting those expectations from the beginning, like,
mm,
yes, you do want to customize for them, but there are limits as to how much we can do. Like, for example, some patients want to lengthen their teeth, and we can't just lengthen teeth willy nilly. So, you have to be able to be in front of that and let them know, like, okay, this is how much we can do from the beginning before they pay.
mm,
You have to have enough of a discerning eye to be able to see when they're saying, oh, I want this canine to be like a little bit, you see how it's like kind of like slanted like this. And I want it more straight up. And they look almost identical, but you have to be able to see it, see
mm.
what they're seeing. That's really important. Was a question about like how much patience I need to have?
Like any like skills or qualities you kind of touched on, like being patient is really important, which
Hmm.
I agree with any.
And it's also a fine balance because if you let patients dictate a lot of these things, they will
Yeah.
run you over. And
Yeah.
so it's like you have to be on board. You have to be like, we can do these things, but you have to let them know like firmly, like this is where we stop. That's very difficult because at least for me, I'm Asian. I don't know if anyone's like watching this. I'm Korean. I'm one of those people like I'll bend over backwards to like make
Mm,
sure that people like my work or like, I'll go above and beyond, but at what cost? It's hard to say no sometimes, and that's something that I've had to learn. Like some people, I'm like, no. Like no, no, no.
mm,
We can't do that. No. Like this is the most that we can do.
mm.
And the patients do respect you for it in the end. They need their boundaries.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's something that I'm working on as a younger. You look really young, Joyce.
Oh,
um,
thank
this is the topic for another time, but
you.
anyways, yeah, that's something I'm trying to work on, like really setting the right boundaries and learning to say no, and so
Hmm.
that we can move on with the treatment.
I mean, that's when I say it's hard, it's not the freaking veneers that are hard, Jamie.
Mm,
It's like it's what we bring to the table, being specifically ourselves, like young Asian females, and this is a male dominated industry. And there's a lot of things that we have to work on so that we can be like a really kick ass cosmetic dentist.
mm,
Let patients know the expectations, guide them, make sure that they're actually happy in the end, make sure that you're paid well for the work that you do, make sure that you like can sleep at night. Those are all things that people don't really talk about that are kind of like underrated.
yeah, that's so true. Do you do mostly like veneers or do you do composite bondings as well? Like what types of like cosmetic procedures do you do?
I do combination. I think my bigger cases are veneers, so like upper and lowers, mostly uppers. 8 to 10 on the upper, or four. Those are like the two most common sets of veneers that we do. I also do some Invisalign. I don't love doing Invisalign,
Mm,
personally, but I do like my cases set up a certain way. And so that's a service that I offer so that I can make sure that the outcome turns out the way that I want it to be. I do a lot of bonding in the practice as well.
mm,
And bonding, I used to do so much more bonding, but over the years, I've learned more so the specific bites and patterns that where the bonding doesn't last. And so I take a lot of that responsibility off myself now. I used to be like replacing bondings all the time if they chipped or whatever. I don't do that anymore. I'm like, this is going to chip. If you want to do a veneer, then we can do that. Or we have to do Invisalign first to get your bite right. I've started doing a lot of that. I also do a lot of BioClear, which is
mm,
like black triangle treatments. And I love the BioClear because it is conservative. It's a real thing that people like hate about their smile is the black triangles. And it's impactful. And you don't have to drill the tooth. And
yes.
when you're trying to fill in a black triangle through veneers, you actually do have to drill more of the tooth structure to accomplish that. So I love offering that too.
You said you like listened to DVDs or something when you started off, but how do you stay updated on the latest trends and like advancements in cosmetic dentistry? Like I'm sure you still take continuing education courses and things like that. Are there any
hmm
courses that you recommend for younger dentists?
I have not taken like any like specifically veneer courses. I think by then I had already done so many veneers,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm taking one in January. I'm really excited about. It's because I just like love Andy. Aesthetics by Andy. Yeah, do you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
her
yeah,
on Instagram? Yeah, she
yeah,
works at Dr. Appa's office, and I just like love her vibe. So I'm like
yeah.
excited to meet her and learn whatever pearls that she has. I learn a
Yes.
lot from Instagram. People share a lot on Instagram. I learn a lot through the
Mm,
DMs. I've taken Kois. Like I really love learning. There's something to learn literally from everybody. And
mm-hmm.
like even I took this course called The Protocol with Dr. Ritter and Ramsey, and they do like full mouth rehab cases. And I took away so many pearls from that too, whether or not I'm actually doing cases exactly the way that they want to,
Mm-hmm.
or that they taught it. But you take things from people and then you put your own spin on it, and that's what makes like what you offer so cool and
Yeah.
special for
Yeah.
patients.
I want to meet Dr. Andy one day too. She's like my role model. So you're taking art of ceramics with Dr. Andy?
hmm
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
I was gonna fly to New York and do that one. Actually, the same time. Do you know who? You know Connie, right?
Yes. Yeah, I love her
She was gonna
podcast.
go to that one. I was like, oh, we could have met. But when she told me that she was doing a class in LA, I was like, oh my god, I
This is
must
the
go. It's made for me. And
yeah.
I really wanted to take Dr. Rodri
Yeah, Rodney.
Thomas.
Yeah.
You took that one, right?
Yeah.
He was gonna do it in LA too, and I was gonna do like 4 days full of like CE fun. But I think he canceled that one. But anyways,
Mm.
I'll take that one another
When
time.
it comes. Yeah. Oh, funny thing is, I actually watched you mentioned Kois. I watched your YouTube video on like your first Kois course, and that really helped me to prepare for it. So have you like taken more Kois courses after that?
I am on several wait lists. It's like
Yeah,
the
there
wait lists
is.
are so long.
It is long.
And it's expensive. This next one I'm very, very excited to go to if I ever get off of a wait list. There's some with the implantology one, I'm not sure. Like I don't want to just finish, graduate just because.
Mm.
But the first few courses I think are like really up my alley.
Yeah, because I think understanding occlusion is so important, especially for aesthetic work, so that you don't have a lot of
Mhm.
failures. And that's what kind of drove me into this COIS curriculum, just to understand. Like, I was kind of getting sick of doing one tooth dentistry. And it's, after taking one course, like, it doesn't mean that I understand occlusion everything, but that's why I'm like, okay, I gotta invest in this and
It's
take
a
it.
it's a good investment, I think.
But it is hefty.
I can see it is hefty. I can see why there's such a like tribe with Kois. It's
Yeah.
because it's like it's really good quality education. It's like stuff. I mean, we pay so much for dental school. And
Mm-hmm.
then the quality that Dr. Coyce brings
Next
is
level.
really top notch. He's a great lecturer.
I think one thing I'm lacking is like the pride, like I'm taking course, I'm
Hmm.
learning from him. We can have that pride as students, like learning from him.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to ask, like, if you have any personal habits or routines that contributed to your success as a cosmetic dentist or in this journey of becoming one.
Mm,
Just
habits.
work
I don't
hard.
know. I don't know. I don't think I have any habits. Like,
That's okay.
my greatest habit is, and this is not just for cosmetic dentistry, but I can rely on myself to show up every single day for something if I put my mind to it. And I think just
Mm,
showing up for yourself and building that trust with yourself is so important, because if you can't even do what you say that you're going to do, then you're not going to get anywhere with any career. And cosmetic dentistry is, like I said, hard to break into. It requires a lot of mental strength to get there and do it.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Like keeping the promise that you made to yourself, and that really builds more confidence in you. And I think one of
Hmm.
the biggest hurdles as younger dentists, like wanting to step into that cosmetic world, I think there's a lot of pressure because these are really expensive treatment and
Hmm.
patients are investing in this treatment. So you really want to deliver well. And then I don't know, this like perfectionism of me, like always says like, you're not ready or you're not there yet. But then how can you get there if you don't even start? So it's like a
Hmm.
fine
Hmm.
balance that you really have to put that confidence in yourself and believe that you can do what you put your mind into.
Yeah. And then people see it. Like, I think the reason I get so many patients from Instagram, it's not because I'm showing off cases all the time. It's because patients know what they're getting from me. I am somebody that shows up every day. I show up on their feed every single day, like their stories. They know that I'm not going to give them veneers and be like, bye. Like,
Mm,
I don't care if you like them or not. They know that I'm going to stick with them and make sure that they love it. I actually had a patient who we got to the veneer phase, the final veneers at try-in. She did not like them. And that doesn't happen that often because the veneers look like the temps. And she
mm.
was okay with the temps. And she kind of started crying.
Oh no.
And, yeah. And it's not an easy situation, but it's also kind of like I needed her to get there because she wasn't saying it as it is in the temporary phase, and she didn't know what she didn't like. So I had her sit with these veneers, the porcelain ones, so that she
Yeah.
could figure out what she doesn't like. And that's when she started sort of like crying. It's hard, but until you figure out what they don't like, you can't fix it, because the veneers that I gave her, I would say like 70% of people would have liked those veneers. But it's all about like taking what she's thinking in her mind and putting it into the porcelain. And basically, at the end of the treatment, when we did deliver her final veneer, she's like, "This is why I chose you, because you never made me feel like I was crazy. I
Mm,
knew you weren't going to just like give me something, and then I knew you're going to stand by your work." And she's like referred her best friend. She's referred so many people, and
mm.
people who are picky don't want to feel like they're unreasonable too.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you have to, play the game. But it's not easy. Emotionally, it's very taxing when someone starts crying.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
but it is so worth it. Just going back to it, just showing up every day and letting people know authentically who you are and what to expect. It means so much to them.
Oh my gosh, just hearing your story like gives me like this weight on my chest. But, I can
uh,
only imagine how rewarding it is at the end when the patient's like super satisfied and happy with it and just going off, telling everyone about you and how great work you've done. So, what advice would you have for aspiring cosmetic dentists who are just kind of wanting to start?
I think it's a really great time to do this with social media. Like, I don't think I would have been able to break into cosmetic dentistry and get this flow of patients without social media. And so it is such a resource. And yeah, and one of the things is like being able to just network with other dentists. It's very powerful because you find out what lab they're using. If you have a really tricky case, you can talk about it with people that you meet online.
Mm-hmm.
And people are more than willing to help each other within a social media space for whatever reason. a lot harder in real life, like if you meet them at CE courses. But now with social media, I feel like a lot of people are more collaborative in nature. And it's just like a really nice feeling to know that there are a lot of people I know that are trying to go into the space, but they're figuring it out together. And you can get those patients. You can create that business. You can create like any business that you want because you have that audience that trusts you and you know how to get in front of them and
Mm-hmm.
let them know about your services. And that's
Yeah.
so powerful.
That's so cool and hopeful for us young
Dude,
dentists.
if I could do it, you can do it. If I can
Aw,
do it, you can do it. Yeah.
yeah.
You guys always message me and say like, "Oh, I want to be like you when I grow up." I'm like, "You will be so much better than me when,"
Aw.
because I do think that I'm doing something that I didn't really have footsteps for, but people follow my footsteps and then they can get there even faster.
Yes, you're so humble, Joyce. It's so meaningful to us to have these kind of engagements who's done it before us and helps us to just keep us going. And thank you so much for setting a good example and just
Oh.
I don't know, I think it's just so I'm just so grateful that we get to connect with great dentists out there and who are more willing to collaborate and give their knowledge and skills. So, yeah, thank you so much for being
Oh,
here.
thank you for having me.
This was my first episode, so it's just like all over the place. But yeah, thank you so much. And I think it's so meaningful. One last thing I wanted to ask is knowing what you know now and what you've gone through, what would you tell new grad Joyce if you were to go back in time?
I think I would tell new grad Joyce that everything will be okay. 'Cause
Don't freak
I'm
out.
like, I'm one of those people where I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. I had a lot of anxiety in dental school. Like, I don't think school is the best environment for me.
Mm,
It just wasn't. So to know that I'm fine, and you really can figure out anything you put your mind to. That is such a crazy, cool, powerful thing to realize about yourself.
yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Joyce. Okay.
Oh, thanks for having me.